Pierce Brosnan, the man, the legend, the icon, from his stunning performances as the self-assured James Bond to his rocking performances in Mamma Mia, you can't help but wonder if there is anything this incredible actor can't achieve. Indeed, there was an aspect over which he possessed nearly no influence. Saddeningly, he watched as two women he loved deeply said their goodbyes. How would you describe the man he became as an adult? With events from the past cropping up again, how did he handle it? By the video's conclusion, you will have learned everything there is to know. Pierce tried his hand at singing, acting, and who knows what else when he was a teenager, but getting famous wasn't all roses and champagne. No way. That could permanently damage the mental health of an unsuspecting individual. Kind of occurrences? Before we get into all that, though, let's speak about his upbringing. Despite being born in Ireland on May 16, 1953, Pierce's parents weren't there to greet him at birth. His parents never showered him with affection, so he never knew what it was like to be loved. In particular, his dad. His father abandoned his mother and him when he was a little child. We will address this significant matter later on in the film. By the time he was 4 years old, Pierce yearned for nothing more than his mother's undivided attention as she worked to improve his life, unlike other children who lusted after attention for their adorable antics. Consequently, he would reside with his maternal grandparents while mother worked. Unfortunately, he also lost his grandparents just as he was beginning to form an attachment to them. The only thing for his mother to do, as any concerned parent would have done, was to place him in a boarding home. His life was obviously not a perfect fairy tale, as you surely have guessed by now. Hold just a second, things are about to get darker. Pierce traveled to London to be with his mom when he was 11 years old, but the reunion was more than he could have imagined. William Carmichael became his stepfather after learning that his mother had wed another man. This tragedy spiraled out of control from there. Starting over in a new city with a new school and, to top it all off, a new parent, was no picnic for him. After learning about his history, do you still believe you'd want to be in his shoes? Everyone wanted to be him, but would you? If so, we regret to inform you that the situation is only going to deteriorate. Strong and courageous, Pierce was a young man. He was still able to discover something that brought him joy and ease. It was a sort of artistic performance. He attained the level of fire eater. And even did some clowning about for a little. Pierce Brosnan breathing fire, isn't that crazy? That wasn't all he did. His career took off as he accepted a position as assistant stage manager at the London Drama Centre. He had no idea that this was the first step in an impeccable career. Are you aware of the factors that contributed to his early success? It was supposedly due to his handsome face, according to most people. But did it stop there? No. People might see through his pretense that he was only handsome. After a short while, he had the opportunity to film a scene from the Red Devil Battery Sign, a play by Tennessee Williams, and that's not all. Pierce was cast in the starring role after the original actor withdrew. He was, may we say, really impressive. As he was thriving as an actor, he crossed paths with a lovely woman. And his love for her was overwhelming. Guess who got lucky? Cassie Harris, an actress from Australia. Warning, she didn't experience love at first sight. With his short hairstyle, she found him unattractive. It is really hilarious that another actor thought Pierce Brosnan looked odd due to his haircut. Their relationship deepened as they spent more time together, and Pierce felt his hopes and dreams coming true. They say that no matter how much love there is, the universe will find a way to make it difficult. Indeed, the cosmos was prepared for a major one. A massive hurdle also stood in the way of their case. The actor Dermot Harris was Cassandra's husband, and the couple had 2 children together. Christopher Harris and Charlotte Harris. Was Pierce then unaffected? No way. Despite the couple's best efforts, their marriage did not succeed, and they ultimately decided to seek a divorce. Now, let's be honest, Pierce was likely thinking, oh my, opportunity. After their divorce was finalized, Pierce and Cassandra combined their kids. Pierce, ever the responsible man, took it upon himself to care for Charlotte and Christopher as his own, believing that what mattered most was love rather than blood. At long last, Pierce had the family he had always imagined. Who among us wouldn't be smitten by a father dubbed Pierce Brosnan the Great? So, was there a happy finish to their story? Recall that we claimed his life was miserable, and that should help you answer your question. You must brace yourself to get your feelings hurt. Now, let's discuss something intriguing before we get on to the main topic. With a supportive wife and a plenty of skill, Pierce was determined to leave Hollywood and pursue his ambition. Thus, Pierce and Cassandra decided to take a chance. Rather than repairing a house for themselves, they borrowed money to fly to Los Angeles. Yes, it is correct. They were completely homeless. It paid well, despite the high risk. Acting on the Manions of America was Pierce's big break. The Irish famine served as an inspiration, and Hollywood was quick to embrace him. After years of fighting, his efforts paid off, and he was finally able to breathe in the starry sky. A massive fan following followed him everywhere he went after his role in the Manions, and his fame skyrocketed. The Remington Steele, a well-known series, offered him a role. Unbeknownst to him at the time, it was on the set of this series that he would eventually release the burden of his long-suppressed trauma. He turned down a supporting role at first, but the series director quickly saw his error and cast him in the lead. He had a life away from the spotlight, as you know. When it concerned his loved ones, the man's life was full of extremes. So, returning to our previous discussion, let's look at his connection with his father. Pierce never met his father and had no other father figures in his life. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, he has the opportunity to meet the individual who left him the moment he was born. In what location? Where Remington Steele is being filmed. Word on the street was that his dad, Thomas, merely approached and introduced himself. Quite unlike from how Pierce had envisioned his father. He had hoped to be a towering figure, but the reality fell short of his expectations. In contrast to the heroic figures he had imagined, his father was a stocky man with silver hair and icy eyes. I know that's not the Hollywood dad he was hoping for, but at this point, what other options were there? Because Pierce was finally seeing his father after a long separation, you might be expecting a major plot point by now. On the contrary, he displayed an adult demeanor, controlling his temper and acting as if he had no ill will toward anyone. He would have likely come to the conclusion that resistance was futile by now. The most important thing is family, therefore it wasn't a picture-perfect reunion. Without a father figure in his life, you may be asking how Pierce managed to be such a decent man. The man who stood up for him, a father figure and stepfather, deserves all the glory. William Carmichael, his stepfather, was a hero to him and his family because he treated him like a son. He thought he was a boon, but wasn't life with him never bumpy? On one hand, you appreciate your parents, and on the other, you wish you could run away from home with all your belongings. It appeared like Brosnan took all the teachings Carmichael taught him about perseverance and family to heart when he was a parent. At this point, Brosnan's career was really taking off. On Remington Steele, he was irresistible to viewers due to his charisma, talent, and good looks. Is it the sole issue? Something minor. He was legally obligated to do so. Because of this, he was unable to play any further parts. Word on the street was that he was a near certain choice to replace James Bond. So he was unable to pursue his ideal position because he was caught in a jigsaw puzzle, but that didn't deter him. Sean, his first son, was born in 1983 as he was establishing the family of his dreams. With the addition of Sean, their family of 5 was complete, and everything was great until it wasn't. A respite from their busy schedules was in order for Pierce and Cassandra 4 years after their son was born. They took the whole family on a vacation to India in 1987 in the hopes of unwinding. Once again, everything went wrong. The vacation that started out peacefully transformed into a living hell in no time. Cassandra began to experience intense nausea and extreme fatigue. And upon their return, they were welcomed with wide arms by devastating news. Cancer of the ovary was detected in Cassandra. In the blink of an eye, everything shifted. It seemed as if Pierce was caught off guard by an unexpected turn of events that he had no control over. Pierce maintained his coolness even when faced with these challenges. He was dead set on something. He vowed to do everything in his power to make her final days memorable. The one who was meant to be his one and only love interest. Did she, though? Cassandra also battled to remain strong. Despite her deteriorating health, the pair found their ideal Malibu home. Although they had moved in, Harris's time was unfortunately coming to an end. Not long after, in 1991, she passed away. Death of Brosnan's wife cast a shadow over his life. For the sake of his children's emotional well-being, he was able to maintain his composure. Did the children feel content? Because they were reminders of his wife, particularly his daughter, Charlotte Brosnan, he chose to disregard everything and draw courage from his children. At a time when he felt he was handling everything well, his son Christopher began abusing drugs. Even though Brosnan knew that Chris's mother's loss was a major factor in his descent into addiction. Even still, he was aware that providing financial support would just exacerbate his son's addiction, and he felt helpless in the face of the situation. A parent's worst nightmare came true, and he had to act accordingly. He chose to sever relations with him. He was struggling. Even if you manage to find water and get a horse to it, you still can't make him drink. Addiction was something Chris had to overcome on his own. Stand beside him were his other children. Even though he loved them all, destiny had other plans and wanted to increase his suffering. Tragic events continued with the diagnosis of an incurable sickness in his beloved daughter Charlotte, the hilarious and delightful one, the same ailment that had claimed the life of his wife, ovarian cancer. Losing Harris and severing relations with his son were already enough to break his heart. In 2013, she was only 41 years old when she died. Would you be able to handle it if it happened to you again? You can't shake the feeling of loss, Brosnan remarked. Indeed, it accomplished that. Pierce continued to move forward even after Charlotte's death because he had some remaining courage. He had to learn to cope with his loss, but there was light at the end of the tunnel. A role in Mrs. Doubtfire brought that optimism. Surprisingly, though, Pierce wasn't the one who received this offer first. Thus, who was it? Supposedly, Tim Allen was first offered the role of Stu, but he declined. Because he got to collaborate with Robin Williams, his idol, Pierce was overjoyed to take on this part. He was an ardent fanboy. For him, working with Robin Williams was like fulfilling a lifelong dream. Although he initially encountered Robin from behind, the moment he turned around, oh boy. That scene, Pierce claimed, will stay with him forever. With his trademark sense of comedy, Robin Williams welcomed Pierce while wearing a wig and a heavy application of makeup. When the opportunity to play James Bond finally presented itself, he understood it was a once-in-a-lifetime chance. The 1995 film GoldenEye marked Brosnan's official debut as 007. It was no surprise that the picture became the highest-grossing Bond film of all time. Why wouldn't it? For Bond, Brosnan was perfect. It was all his. All the qualities need to be James Bond: sophistication, charisma, and more. Bond, James. Here is a fascinating truth that we would like to share with you. Actually, of all the actors who have played James Bond, Pierce Brosnan was the lightest. However, his tailor noted that he had gained a few pounds when filming the fourth James Bond film began, so he had to address that issue as well. Pierce believed he would never find love again after the death of his wife. He pretended that was sufficient, so he worked constantly and busied himself. Love came knocking on his door again since his life was becoming slightly monotonous. He became interested in Keely Smith, an American journalist. And they hit it off right away. After Cassandra's death, Keely brought harmony to his life and, in a way, filled the hole she had created. They were blessed with two lovely children. In 1997, Dylan was born, and in 2001, Paris was born. Because his family was and is his first focus, his life was positively turned upside down. Despite his busy schedule, he never wavered from his role as a dedicated father to his children. He openly acknowledged Keely's exceptional qualities and wed her in 2001 at Ireland's Ballintubber Abbey. He was already close to trying everything, but having Keely in his life drove him to take it to the next level. Was there anything this man left behind for anybody else? He began his producing company in 1996 and aired 2 films that year. The first one, The Nephew, had a decent plot but wasn't quite as well respected as the second. A case involving Thomas Crown. Not only was Brosnan successful in his field, but he was also a cultural symbol. Since his wife Keely had put on a few pounds after having their first child, he was understandably apprehensive to the thought of liposuction. He told her she was stunning the way she was and threatened to end the marriage if she contemplated liposuction. Isn't it beautiful, yet poisonous? When we talk about films, who among us recalls Pierce Brosnan as James Bond the most? Imagine if, after years of portraying the legendary James Bond, he was abruptly told, "You're out." In this case, the producers unexpectedly contact him, stating that they require a fresh connection because they are heading in a different path. With the grace of a true gentleman, he severed the tie. Is there a certain approach you found to handle those that despise you? perform better in their absence. Pierce did precisely that. He decided he wanted to be a musician instead of an exciting spy. Absolutely. He's a star in the mega hit Mamma Mia. Critics don't even bother to inquire as to why he wasn't brandishing a weapon, he was singing instead. Their cruel remarks nearly killed the unfortunate man. His whereabouts were traced to a donkey and a wounded raccoon. Because he was prepared to deal with bullying, he shrugged it off and convinced himself that his singing skills were lacking. However, he persisted despite this. Returning for Mamma Mia, he made an appearance in the sequel. Another round we go. However, a brief period passed. By the time even his most ardent admirers began to question his character. They began to doubt his decisions, and we can't say that we blame them either. In 2010, Brosnan starred in The Ghostwriter, but the film's alleged rape director was a major controversy. Pierce ought to have declined to collaborate with Roman Polanski, given his illogicality. Did he decline the offer, then? No, dudes. That's not true. On the contrary, he rationalized his choice by stating that one's private and public lives should not be mixed. The fans took this personally, and when the #MeToo movement gained momentum, Brosnan acknowledged the pervasive harassment that women endure on a regular basis in the industry and admitted that he would have made a different choice in present-day circumstances. Even worse for the kind guy, Pierce, was the fact that cancer took the lives of his wife and daughter. The loss of his dear friend Boast Claire, who tragically passed away from ovarian cancer. She was more like a sister to Brosnan, he says. Because he was so affected by his friend's death, he became actively involved in cancer awareness initiatives. Along with his wife, he has served as an ambassador for UNICEF Ireland, donated priceless artwork to various charities, and done other things to help this cause. The man's career was quite successful. He was nominated for 2 Golden Globes, received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and was crowned People's Sexiest Man Alive. Additionally, he was named one of the world's 50 most handsome persons. He's 71 years old and going strong. A dreamer, even according to his own children. The same illness that killed his wife also took his daughter, but he climbed back up and continues to give his all to help those in need in his community.